And our goal is to stimulate intercultural dialogue that promotes tolerance, understanding, and a sense of shared belonging, especially now in our nation. Just to give you a little background, MALA is a nonprofit 501c3. We are focused on amplifying stories of Muslim Americans across the nation. And to this date, we have collected, archived, and preserved over 850 stories from across generations across this nation, ranging from first generation to fourth generation, multitude of diasporas spreading all across the world, really to showcase and highlight the vibrancy and the uniqueness of the Muslim American community, which is one of the broadest demographics in the United States. Our stories are recorded in partnership with StoryCorps, and they are also archived into the National Library of Congress. And really, from these stories, we've been able to do a wide range of events spotlighting the leadership and the unique contributions that our community members hold across the country. And today, I'm super excited to bring this first event forwards, Digital Diasporas, powered by Facebook. And with me today, I have Samhar Araya, who is she is the digital director or head of diaspora policy on the Africa Public Policy team for Facebook. The Samhar is Eritrean American, a recognized practitioner, organizer, and advisor on diaspora engagement, African affairs, women's leadership, and international development. I personally also have known Samhar's work through UNICEF USA, and she has also been a part of major forums such as the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the Commission on the Status of Women, and the International Conference of Eritrean Studies. So Samhar, it's truly an honor to partner with you once again for this amazing event, and I will hand over the mic to you. So thank you so much for allowing us to partner with Facebook and for bringing this wonderful event to our community together.
Thank you, Zainab, and thank you throughout the United States with different Muslim American communities for a few years now, and I'm just really thrilled that we found a way to work together on this exciting event and today's conversation. As Zainab shared, my name is Samhar Araya, and I'm the head of diaspora policy for Facebook's Africa, Middle East, and Turkey policy teams. We're the team that focuses on how stakeholders, different stakeholders from all walks of life, from different positions, use our platform and how they shape the policy environment. And for years, the work that we've been doing has largely been focused on that region, Africa, Middle East, and Turkey. But what we immediately knew and what we've known over the last 6 years is that the diasporas are also very critical stakeholders to this work. So Facebook has committed itself to really examining and understanding how diasporas engage on our platform, understanding their different user experiences, understanding all the different ways they make impact where they live and in their diaspora ancestral homelands. And you know, for diasporas around the world, this is hugely important, but especially for diasporas from Africa, Middle East, Turkey, from Asia, you know, areas where the impact and the contributions of diasporas have significant reach and can really drastically change circumstances on the ground, and also drastically impact communities where they live. Just by way of background, I'm also very excited for today's event. It's cultivating community and service with next generation diaspora leaders from Twin Cities to the world. There are two reasons why I love this. There's three, actually. First one, of course, is that it's diasporas and amplifying the impact, the positive impact diasporas are able to make and using our tools, which is fantastic. But also because it's got a next generation focus, understanding that no matter when you came to this country or when you were born in this country, your thoughts and your purpose are so closely aligned with how you can support your community and your homeland, the homeland that you may never have been to, the homeland that you still remember, the homeland that you go to quite regularly. And that kind of intention is so powerful, and we see how it unfolds on Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. So the third reason I'm most excited is because I am from the Twin Cities. very proud to have this conversation with our panelists today. I feel like they're family. I was born in New York, moved all over the country, but spent my seriously formative years in Minneapolis, in the suburbs. So high school, elementary school, junior high, high school, college, and then I later taught at the University of Minnesota. So I just feel really connected to this conversation, and it's really grateful to, really an honor to hear from our panelists today. So with that, just before we begin the conversation, I would like to just remind you all that this conversation is a part of a larger series of Digital Diasporas events. You can see what else Facebook is doing in this context by following the hashtag or posting with the hashtag Digital Diasporas. And you can contribute your thoughts and let us know what you thought of it at any time. But without further delay, I really would like to start the conversation with our special guests. And I'd like to kick it off with having each panelist introduce themselves, their title, affiliation, and then we can jump sort of into this conversation about what it means to cultivate community and service as next-gen diaspora leaders. So I'd like to begin with our first discussant, Ahmed Omar, who is with Mala. Ahmed, could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, and thank you for helping putting together this important event. And before I introduce myself, I just want to wish everyone safe holidays with the holidays coming up. And this year has been a tough year on all our communities with COVID, and I just want to make sure that everyone's staying healthy and doing well. My name is Ahmed Flex Omar. I'm the Deputy Director CXO for Mala. I'm basically in charge of the human experience, building a platform that is human centered, because a lot of the work that we do is community related, and we're constantly engaging with our community. We have a large network all across the United States, but we've done a considerable amount of work in Minneapolis. I'm personally Somali-American, so I do have a number of family living there, so it's an honor to be part of the conversation today.
That's great. Thank you, Flex. I'd like next, Isa, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Sarah. My name is Isaac Gady. I've been in this country over 30 years. I came here when I was about 2 years old. Graduated in college. I was involved in technology and digital transformation later on. So this is digital diaspora is something that dear to my heart. Engaging in our community here and back home, and teaching how to utilize the platform, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or WhatsApp or Instagram. I have a startup called Build Talk that does pharmaceutical medications and how to use it and so on and so forth. So I'm pretty much involved for digital advertisement as well as social media. So I'm glad to be participating in this conversation, and wanted to contribute what I know. Been so many different countries as a consultant for the last 20 years. I've seen how some of those countries that you mentioned in terms of Asia, Africa, and Turkey, how they utilize platform, and you'd be surprised how they actually, some similarities exist. So we'll talk about that later on, but I live in Twin Cities for the last almost 20 years now. I lived in DC, worked in Atlanta as well, worked in New York as well. I mean, travel around the world as a consultant. So, I mean, I have many different backgrounds in terms of interacting for different people.
That's great. Thank you, Sam. And Mohammed, could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Samha. My name is Mohammed Amin Ahmed. I am the founder and creator of Average Mohammed. Average Mohammed is a counter-ideology platform. And what happens is we counter extremist ideology coming from Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Al-Shabaab, at the same time to white supremacy. we talk about three principles. The first principle is peace. Islam is peace. That's what we promote. The second principle we promote is democracy, because we believe that in our system of governance, compared to theocracy, communism, and dictatorship, our system is much better. And the third principle is anti-extremism and anti-hate. When we talk about extremists, we talk about white supremacy, we talk about Muslim supremacy, but also we're also talking about hate, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, racism, homophobia, anti-Christianity. All these are hate that we don't want our kids to have. So what we do is we engage kids between the age of 8 and 16 using social media and also in face-to-face meetings. Those are our priorities, and that's what we work with. I am based out of the Minnesota. We are proudly Minnesotans here. I guess we are overrepresented here today. And we live in a great society whereby we are allowed to prosper. And there's a huge diaspora population here, first generation, second generation. I am first generation immigrant. My children, they don't know any better. They're only Americans. So they're second generation, but they're first generation Americans. You know, that's the only homeland they have is America. And the only time they see Africa is during vacation, which they complain a lot about, you know. Other than that, I am proud to associate myself with Facebook, because Facebook has been great help in our efforts. And Mala has actually helped me out in terms of reaching out to a broader perspective. So this is something I'm looking forward to engaging today.
That's great. Thank you so much. And just for everyone, we are facing some logistical, technical difficulties with getting Halal on the line. So hopefully she'll be able to connect. And when she does, we will jump right in with her as well. But the three of you are just doing different and really remarkable examples of either entrepreneurship or starting the organizations or taking on these initiatives that are truly global and bringing it to your local communities. I should say, before we begin, it's important for everyone to think about what it means to be in the diaspora. And it means it's very different for everyone, but generally speaking, the way we look at it at Facebook and the way that I've always looked at it is for diasporas, it doesn't matter if you were born there or if you're an immigrant, if you're a child of immigrants, or if you're a multi-generational person of African descent in this case. It's really about how you self-identify. And first generations, you know, that many times are the immigrant communities, the immigrants themselves who made that first trek into the country and who've made the difficult journey of adjustment. But there's also something to be said about second generation, which I am one of them. But the second generation space is really just groundbreaking in so many ways right now, especially because of technology. And so between the first and then the 1.5, who are sort of in between, and then the second, we're seeing massive, massive growth and creativity around engagement from a diasporic lens. And then we have our broader sort of multi-generational descendants who still feel connected, and it's that umbilical connection and that desire to be connected that I think permeates throughout all of our communities. And the Twin Cities has been a really wonderful home for diasporas of all backgrounds, not just Somali, Eritrean, or Ethiopian, but diasporas from Norway and Scandinavian countries to the Jewish diaspora to Arab diasporas. So really lucky to have a rich example of all the different ways that diasporas are making impact. So you've told us a little bit about your organizations. I'd like to know what prompted you to start it, and how are you driving your organizational mission or your business model to make impact in the community? Mohammed, could we start with you, please?
Sure. Around 2014, 2015, there was an avalanche of propaganda coming from ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Al-Shabaab hitting our community. And that was very distressful. And we were all new at that. I mean, Facebook was caught unaware of it. And we here in the community were getting the brunt of it. Not anymore. I mean, I can say right now, Facebook has reduced it to zero, completely taken that material off our social media platform. But at that time, there was an avalanche and there was no response to it. And what happened is the kids we started speaking to started telling us, well, you know what, we get about, an average kid was getting about 5 posts between the Twitter, the Facebook, the YouTube, and the other social media accounts from extremist organizations directly targeting them. And there was no response. So we started creating a response using cartoons. And lo and behold, it went viral. And when it went viral, what happened is more and more kids started engaging us and started asking these questions. Well, they're saying suicide bombers go to heaven. And we say, no, they go to hell. This is what the Quran teaches. They say we should join, pack our bags, and go help the Syrian Muslims. We say, no, there are other ways in a democratic system that you can help and help your community further. So social media became our way of promoting good. In other words, we created that which was good and we disseminated it on social media. Facebook was paramount to it. And more importantly, Facebook paid for the first project to go global, literally, because they were working with Institute of Strategic Dialogue and they gave money to them. And they in turn gave money to Average Muhammad, and we went global with our messaging system. So what forced us is the need. There was a need, and we filled the need. And until now, the need is there, less so because the recruitment process has gone underground, not on social media anymore, not at least on Facebook anymore. I can tell that very easily. And thank you, Facebook, for that, because you make my work much, much more easier than when there's propaganda being spilled out to my community at a rate which is unbelievable. I'll leave it at that.
No, thank you for that. We'll get more into all of this as we continue. Isa, tell us, I know you have your own company, but you're also a management consultant. Tell us how you've taken your different work experiences. How have you been able to apply it for the community?
Yes, absolutely. So digital transformation was my regular day-to-day work, helping companies to transform digitally, and then it's naturally kind of morphed into the Somali community as well as back home when I look at how they use it and they're doing their own transformations and utilize my experience helping them utilize the platforms to the fullest. So I started a company called Bill Talk. It's a pharmaceutical app where people can look at prescription and see how they could use that prescription and what are the impacts or any other information that they can get any prescriptions. That was one of the helpful things that they could utilize because we have so many pharmacies in Western world, but in Africa, a pharmacist is the regular guy who just knows prescriptions and can talk about limited basis. So this was one of the things that I can help them reach a platform where they can go in and type whatever prescription and then get the information that they need. And to add to that, I recently went back after 34 years. And when I went back, I saw a lot of young kids. Over 70% are between 16 to 24 years old in Africa, specifically in Somalia. And when I saw all these kids have going to college, have laptops and internet cafes, and some of the things that they use in our Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Instagram, and I was kind of amazed. And then I looked at it, the way they're using it. So I took initiatives to help them out and how they could digitally take advantage for these free platforms and use it to its fullest. So you could say it's naturally morphed into it in my work as a management consulting into helping some of the diaspora folks that are utilizing Facebook. We do have some. We'll talk about. I think one of the questions that we have talk about negativity that involved as well, but we'll talk about that later, which I advise a lot of the young kids how they could move away that and use its positive images to do it.
That's great. Thank you. Flex, I know you together with Zainab are the co-founders of Mala. Tell us why was it important to start Mala, and what has it meant to give back to the community for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Mohammed was talking earlier, and I'm a big fan of his work. There was just a need for the community to connect, and for Muslims also to own their own narrative. And the way we could do that was by sharing stories. We're inspired by Humans of New York, and they would post stories on Facebook. So we started collecting stories from our friends in our network, and it grew. And a lot of our initial work was on Facebook because we were still new, and then we had the partnership with StoryCorp in Chicago, and stories started landing on NPR on the radio, and we would get edited SoundCloud versions to put it on our SoundCloud page. And then we started posting those as well on Facebook, and the insights that we've gotten from our Facebook fan page was just incredible. And one thing we would notice is every time we shared a story, that story would go viral because relatives of that person would hear about the story anywhere in the world, which is the coolest thing because of, the diaspora are everywhere. So if you posted a story of someone that's living in Chicago or Minneapolis, then their relative from Australia would comment. And it was also really powerful because we could see the folks that are engaging with the stories and how they were connected, started connecting on a human level. And Facebook gave us all those, tools for free to be able to analyze and get all those back-end analytics and to see, if the project that we started is working. And it just helped us with putting together reports to better understand our community and the network that we built and how we can better, grow it. And also asking for feedback, because you have that messenger feature on Facebook where people would reach out to us. And quite honestly, when we first started, people thought that we were a marriage website because we had all these great stories of successful
Oh my gosh.
individuals. So people will reach out to us and ask us, well, how can I can connect with so and so, or my family member with so and so, which was really really nice. And because people were very proud of how we projected and amplified people's stories, and it just helped us scale and just build that relationship with the community.
Yeah, you've unearthed a community and a network that couldn't find each other before that. I just really love this story. We'll talk about the tools, later. I'm just so excited to hear that Facebook was integral for your connecting. But I think what's so neat here is the idea that you took, just how instantaneously it took off around the world. Before we continue, just for our guests, can you tell us a little bit about the diversity and the range of your members or the networks that you reach? Because today's panel is unique in the sense that we have overwhelmingly Somali diaspora representation, but Mala is really a global Muslim American organization, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We are also part of the UN's ECOSOC, so the Economic and Social Council, and we have relationships globally with NGOs. But like I said, our community is truly global. We've had many young people engage with the brand while they were international students here in the US, but now they went back to their home countries and they're still able to engage with us on Facebook and connect with us and see how they can take some of the work that Mala was doing and the impact and apply it in their local communities, which was a really interesting insight. So,
love that. I want to take sort of a similar question to Asaf and Mohammed. You've both from Minneapolis, St. Paul metropolitan area. You've both launched initiatives that really were ultimately very global by nature. What did that mean for you? The thing about Twin Cities that's so special is we're all in many ways connected. It's a global city, as former Mayor R.T. Ryback would always call it. He believes in global, and the idea of Minneapolis as a global city sometimes gets lost in a conversation. But what did it mean for you to, from where you are, whether you're suburbs or city, to start these initiatives that really landed in different countries around the world? Isak, let's start with you.
Yes, it's landed in so many different countries and so many different backgrounds in terms of the Bill Talk app and the platform. What unique is this is that everybody uses prescription. I mean, there's so many countries that needed it to find information about a particular drug and its interaction. So that's some of the things that uniquely unified so many different geographical locations and backgrounds as well. So I had some people reach out to me in Brazil and asking me when is the next time we're gonna update or add these features and so on and so forth. And I was really amazed. I was like, oh, Brazilian use this? And some of the people asking me what other language were we adding to this app and so on and so forth. So I mean, my intention was one or two targets when I started it, but it ended up, platform utilized so many different countries as well. So the powerful of the social media is one of the things that made possible to engage and reach out so many different nationalities and backgrounds and all walk of life in around the world. So it's amazing.
Yeah, you're able to reach your customer base at an exponentially faster rate than what traditional business models have been, just because of your digital strategy. Mohammed, for you, your goal was to really focus on the youth that were being targeted, the marginalized youth who were at risk from, if I'm not mistaken, mostly Somali-American communities. I remember even further back from 2014, I remember in 2007, 2008, when Somali youth around the world were, particularly in diaspora communities, at particular risk of recruitment and being recruited into violence or extremist activity. But when you started this, you were thinking of the youth in your locale. And tell us about how quickly it really expanded and what the digital reach has been from the content you've created, the cartoons or the messaging or the videos, any sort of content you're creating. Tell us about where it's landed and how it's been received.
No, you're right. In 2007 and 2008, a lot of kids joined Al-Shabaab, but that is Somalia. When we came from Somalia. So that was, okay, that makes kind of sense. The Somalis, they're going back to Somalia, but they're extremists. But in 2014, 2015, they were going to ISIS, that is Syria and Iraq. And we, the first generation, were like, what? Syria, Iraq, to do what? So it kind of took us by surprise. And the fact that there was no response took us by surprise too. And the main reason why I got started is because one of my nieces actually joined ISIS. And when I talked to her mother, and I spoke to her mother, and I said, how come you did not stop this process? You know what she said? She said, what is social media? You see, the generation we come from, who are parents, we have no clue when it comes to social media. We didn't grow up with it. But the 7-year-old growing up today has a YouTube page, and that is sophistication of learning of how to use electronic material. So when I put up something on Facebook, it goes viral or it goes around the community, it starts a conversation. People will say, oh, we don't like it. Why are you saying this? Or people will say, okay, you're saying this, but you could have said this better. Or people will say, this hits right on the mark, and I will use it. Now, what happens is the diaspora community is one in which, for example, when you make a product for Minnesota, and I make it in English, Swahili, and Somali for East Africa, guess what? It has dual use, meaning that it can be used in Somalia, it can be used in Kenya, it can be used in Tanzania, Uganda, and Djibouti. So it becomes because of the languages. And what happened is there's a community. One person likes it in Kenya, guess what? 10 other people like it in Tanzania because they're friends, and people like it in Somalia proper because they're cousins and family. And that's how the world seems to work now. We are interconnected in so many ways through Facebook that is unbelievable. It's a village. And I tell people, look at your Facebook feed. In my Facebook feed, I have cousins who speak Norwegian, Swedish, Dutch, French, Somali, Arabic. I have Turkish people. I mean, these are all just my family, And when you look at the feed, it's in all languages. Sometimes we tell them, please translate, because it looks interesting, because they're getting a lot of likes. But what Facebook has done is it has brought the market community together. It's the equivalent of a water cooler in the modern day age. Now, there are good people on it, There are bad people on it, and there is decent and extraordinary people on it who are utilizing it for many reasons. And that ability of Facebook to bring me into the water cooler conversations around the world is unbelievable. And in terms of how much good we can do with it is exponentially unquantified. And that is what we approach social media as. We say social media is a window to the world because they say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, the village is Facebook. Everyone is on it. And that's where we start our conversations.
Yeah, I feel so strongly about that from just as my own personal experience of where our relatives are, all the different countries our family members are in. And we have central meeting place is WhatsApp or Facebook, and we find each other there. And so I completely hear you on what it means to have your village be truly global, but it's also your family. It's literally a family in your community. Tell us a little bit, I want to hear from all of you, sort of what has the reaction been from the community itself, from the Somali diaspora community in the Twin Cities or other Somali diaspora communities for each of your initiatives? I know that new ideas are always a little scary for some people in our communities because it's too new. And then there are others who can say right away, this is exactly what we've needed. What has your experience been in the feedback from diasporas? Ahmed, could we start with you, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I have a tech background, and I've been around computers since I was a child, and I've just seen the evolution of computing, till we got to Web 2.0, which is, social media and how it integrates with all the systems and all the networks. Right now with social media, if you have a hypothesis as an entrepreneur or someone who's looking to start a project, you can literally make a post and get instant feedback. And that really helps you because you're getting real-time data. But it's not just a data point. These are also human beings that are engaging with you on the page that you created. And that page becomes a platform. And once you really understand how platforms work, you're able to build a community online. So from our end, from the beginning, the reviews have been positive because we focused on individual stories and individual journeys. And we also included everyone in the conversation that has Muslim-American heritage, and having a lot of relatives, obviously, that are Somali, and people from the Somali community. They loved it because they were able to share their stories, and also able to connect with one another on the platform. And we've done a lot of events nationally, and a lot of our events will also be set up through Facebook. So that was a really important tool for us, because you're doing CRM, customer relationship management work, and you're using a free service. And then from there, those people, becomes not just storytellers, and they're archiving their stories with us, but they also become community leaders, because they're the first ones to truly engage with the brand. And then they go and spread the message about the work that we're doing. And then from there, we see how we can help them grow whatever work that they're doing in their own community, and help scale that, on a local level. But when you start helping out with all these little projects locally, it becomes a big, project. And like Mohammed said, it really is a village. And I can say, based on, our Facebook reviews and analytics and insights, that the community is very proud of the work that we're doing.
That's fantastic. Oh, go ahead, Zainab.
I kind of wanted to jump in there with this, Samhar, because this is also a topic that hits very home for me. It's very strongly coming from different heritage different, you know, my son is, I don't know if he would be considered first generation because I'm married to an immigrant, so, and my husband is of a different heritage than me, but I can tell you the power of diaspora storytelling really hits home when you realize that this is my story of belonging. It's belonging and identity, which I think is so imperative, especially in American society. So many of our storytellers have come from war, conflict, trauma, other forms of turmoil that have undermined or weakened cultural identity. And so what our storytellers have really been able to do is share how freedom, democracy, being fluid and being Muslim and being able to be American, how that's allowed their identities to become recentered and really show a different blueprint of what it is to be American. And I think that's really powerful because 40, 50 years down the line, these stories are being archived for generations to come. So we've been able to share, like, archive stories. For example, there was this one woman, Dr. Laleh Bakhtiar, who is Iranian, who was the first woman to translate the Quran from Arabic to Farsi. And we actually had the honor of recording her story, and she's recently passed away. And her children and her family had actually reached out to us to be able to share her story because we were able to preserve that. And I think that's very powerful because we're leaving a blueprint down for the next generation to come, saying we Muslim Americans are very much a part of the American history itself. So I think for that case, that diaspora conversation and the need to tell our stories is so imperative, with along with the work that Isaac and Muhammad and Ahmed Flex, you guys have been doing. It's so imperative that we keep rolling that out and we keep showing how much our stories are fused into the American experience. So I just kind of wanted to share that from our perspective, and archiving and collecting over 1,000 digital diasporas, that it really, really is something for the next generation.
I love that, Zainab. Thank you for that intervention. I think so the idea of storytelling is so critical to the way that as Americans we help build out and introduce ourselves. But what Flex was just touching on with the way the tools are used to do that, you know, I was listening to Flex and just thinking, for someone who's not in business, this would be really daunting. You know, a CRM, analytics, report, these are completely new. This is a new language. And there are so many people in the diaspora who want to start a nonprofit, a community organization, who want to serve, but making that leap to digital is quite frightening, to be honest. It's overwhelming. You mentioned you had a tech background, but for those of us who are on the call who may not have a tech background, how did you feel about utilizing the Facebook and Instagram tools? Do you think that those were tools that an average Mohammed could pick up? If I can say that.
Yeah, an average Muhammad, average Ahmed, you know, average Samhar, average Zainab, average Isaac, you know. So that's the interesting thing about the platform. You know, it's a software, right? And when you're building any website or program, you got to go in there and have a considerable knowledge of coding and be able to code. And if you miss one line in the code, the system, you know, doesn't work. You know, so that's part of my background is working with HTML and so on. And before Facebook, there was MySpace, and with MySpace, you know, you had to do a lot of coding, so it was a lot of work. But with Facebook, you know, a lot of the work is done for you, but you still have to have just a little bit of that technical knowledge. Now, for someone who doesn't have experience in computer science, main thing that you can get out of Facebook is brand building. You're able to build your own personal brand on Facebook. And the reason why this is important right now is we all live in a digital world, and with COVID, it just accelerated what was already happening. So for people to really engage with you and find out what you're working on, what you're doing, and be able to support you, your story has to be out there. and the work that you're doing. And so the more you put out there into the world, the more you're going to receive. And we've had over the years, people reach out to us telling us that they've been on job interviews where the HR person read their Mala story on Facebook, and now you're sitting, in front of the HR person. You're no longer a stranger, because they know so much about, your life's journey, and that's something that cannot be captured on a resume. So even if you don't have a computer science background, you can build a brand. And when it comes to any business, whether it's a non-for-profit, whether it's a beverage company, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, it's all about the branding. So start with that. Start with building the brand. And, Muhammad has done an incredible job with, being known as Average Muhammad. And the minute you say Average Muhammad, you know who it is. And, Isaac talking about his project and Pill Talk, that is brand, and that is branding. And utilizing social media's tools for free, you're able to build that brand equity and be able to scale your business globally. So that's where I see it, from someone that is coming from a tech background, but at the same time, even if I didn't have the tech or the business background to be able to utilize the software, the least thing I can do is able to build a personal brand, and then from there utilize the feedback loop that Facebook gives you, whether you're able to make a post that is a poll, that is a question, so there's so many ways to engage with the audience and the community that you're trying to build.
I love that. Thank you, Ahmed. So, Isa, I want to turn to you with a similar question. Before I do, though, those of you in the audience, just noting that there's a message for you in the chat that if you have any questions you'd like to submit, please submit them. We have about 10 more minutes of discussion. So I have a few more questions. I'm happy to keep going, but I want to make sure that you guys also are able to weigh in on anything that's on your mind. Isa, my question is sort of similar to the one I asked just now. The idea of coding or helping people see the values of social media. When you hear coding, it's too specialized, right? It's too technical. But social media, I know you've done work around the world training and introducing social media tools as a member of a diaspora, but traveling into different countries. For those non-tech audiences who maybe have never been on social before, what was the experience like for you, and what was the feedback you got?
It was really a lot. I mean, a lot of folks, like Flex talked about it, data science, like CRM and what you guys talked about. A lot of people nowadays utilize free tools such as Facebook. These platforms, you can make your product get started and took off. And then later on, if things get technical, which is going to get technical at some point in time, you can add that and learn along the way. If you don't have the funds to hire additional folks who could do and build that. What's so unique about this is that when I was in Africa recently, folks asking me, hey, they want to start a TV channel so they can reach out to the diaspora, and my take was, why would you want to spend so much money while you could start your show on Facebook or YouTube and reach the audience that way? And then if you see a value added, you can build your once you build your brand, you can expand to TV and what have you. And they liked the idea, and then they didn't know exactly what to do about building their brand through these free platforms. So one of the things that I give them one-on-one was the fact that how they could create their own group, their own show, start making a sketchbook to come on and talk about whatever interesting that they want to talk about. And then they can build a brand that way and reach more audience that their TV will not even reach sometimes, right? So, and then they could take that and expand if they see a fit in their product. So really, it all comes down how you want to build your product through some of these free platforms. And that's itself, you have to know what are the platforms, these free platforms, what are the limitations? Which is right now, I see that a lot of the African folks utilizing about 20% of the potential for these free platforms. They're not quietly using to its potential. So that's something that they either learn or they get, look into where they can get information about how they could utilize to its potential. So it's something that I'm actually helping some folks right now for free that are, that want to exercise on building some of these products. So it's really some of the interesting things that I've seen for the last 6-7 months. I mean, the COVID-19 also came in, and there's no face-to-face. So we're doing exactly this. I've been get used to this because I've been doing 20 years about conference calls every Friday. And when I came back home on Thursday night, all our Fridays status calls were a conference call. We never had a video conference. Probably last 5 years we had a video conference here and there, but rarely were conference. 90% of the time was conference call. Now it's 100% Zoom call or video conference calls, regardless of the COVID-19. It started this year, and COVID-19 comes in and exponentially took off. So you can see what causes some of the Mother Nature is teaching us to adapt. And as a result, we're changing our game day in, day out. So it's something that that folks back in Africa either get the knowledge or seek the knowledge and get a help for the folks that we know or have the experience of it.
That's great. To Mohammed, I sort of have an opposite question, and this is coming from one of our attendees. You've spoken about how your target has been the youth because they're already on social media. They know this. They have a YouTube page. They're on Instagram. They're doing all these different things. What has the reception been from older generations in your community? How have they adapted to social media to connect with family and friends?
At first, the older community did not get on the social media wagon, but now they are. And the reason being they are now is because there's more on social media now. There is entertainment. There are people who use Facebook to make short videos of entertainment, which they get ratings on. Political situations. Politics seems to be the main topic with which all the generations seem to generate on social media. They want to keep up with their locals in Somalia, and social media is able to do so. Another thing is social movements. For example, political parties, healthcare groups, women groups, associations, and things of those sort. People are collecting themselves here in Minneapolis and in the diaspora, and that has become a new platform. For example, I'll give you an example of right now, coronavirus. I think every organization that is a healthcare organization here in Minnesota, which is Somali, has released a PSA, a public service announcement on social media. And including, we are about to do the same here in Average Mohammed, hopefully next week, to do a PSA about coronavirus. But social media's ability to go ahead and take issues which mainstream America talks about, but here is in the diaspora, we want to talk about it in our own language, because what happens then is we make it the message to fit our community. And if it fits our community, then the message gets more accepted. And that is something that we're seeing with social media. Social media.
Can I just ask, Mohammed, to fit to your community, what is it, a language issue, or is it a different type of context? What does it mean?
It's not just language, it's cultural. Culturally speaking, people understand things differently. And more importantly, the urgency level is completely different from one community to another community. For example, with the COVID coronavirus, we mostly here in Minneapolis live 3-generation houses. My father lives with my brother, he lives with his kids. Now, how can we explain to them that, look, you may be safe, the son may be safe, and the grandchildren may be safe because they're still young, but you can bring it home to your father, to your grandfather. You know, how do you make that message clear that you have to wear a mask to protect yourselves at all times? How do you make the message clear that you need to wash your hands the moment you walk in the house so that you don't give your grandfather this disease? Because you may be immune to it, or it may not affect you, but it will affect your grandfather. And that's what we're seeing the impact is. It's understanding cultural differences. Most Somalis look at coronavirus and they say the same thing they say in Africa and the same thing they say here. If God wills it, I get it. If God didn't will it, I will never get it. Now, God also told us, trust in God, but tie your camel. Otherwise, it will go wandering around, you know? So what we know is precaution is important. And how you talk to that community, you base it on the cultural level. For example, when we create Average Muhammad cartoons, we base it on Islamic culture. And the women wear hijab and everything else along those lines. And I get a lot of grief from that. For example, people tell me, well, not all Muslim women wear hijab. And I say, well, yes, but the one who's not wearing a hijab is not probably going to blow herself up. You know, it's the ones who are more traditional that you're looking for. And,
So in saying that, you're saying that you have a very targeted audience within the diaspora. So one of the challenges with diaspora organizing or content is even for one community, they're treated as a monolith, a homogenous group. And the truth is that it's very diverse even within the diaspora community. Even in a country like Eritrea, which has a smaller population, it's a very active population, but there's so many differences within the Eritrean identity, and that's new for us. I can tell you personally, in our different communities around the world, it's new to see these different voices and ideas. But understanding fundamentally that there's a thorough line throughout everyone in their pride and then their self-identification as Eritreans. But to your point, I really wish Halal could have made it for the conversation to talk about, Henna and Hijabs, the company that she started, and why hijabs for her, what it means for representation of women online and why she chose to do it. I think that's a great point, Mohammed. The cultural context is always a challenge because you really have to know who within the diaspora you're targeting. I ran a diaspora organization for 10 years, Diaspora African Women's Network, and I knew how specific I needed to be. Just because we're such a sheer large community, just because we haven't been represented, you can't serve everybody. You have to really make that tough decision to create community. I have one last question before we wrap up, and it's a bit of what you discussed, Mohammed, is the challenge of educating the communities. You've been responsive on COVID. Mala is doing storytelling, but of course there's always interpretations, right? I'm sure you've received. And Isak, for you, with a business that's providing pharmaceutical services, how do you ensure that what you're providing, the information you're providing, is accurate? How do you fight misinformation? Or there's always a danger, especially on the politics that you talked about, Mohammed, people having different sets of information and it's inaccurate, or even worse, it's complete misinformation or disinformation. What have you done with your respective audiences to ensure that what you're communicating is accurate? And how do you clarify and fight back against misinfo? Isak, let me hear from you first.
Yeah, this is one of the topic, specifically this question that you just asked is dear to me because be authentic in digital and social media is one of the things that if you are authentic and your message is clear and your audience can understand, is one of the best things that you could do to be more share stories. Right now, one of the things that I see in African diaspora and African back home is that they are heavily utilizing misinformation and propaganda in terms of utilizing the social media aspect of, right? So how do you build a brand that are authentic where people can rely on? And that's some of the things that I've been talking about, some of the folks that I had a discussion with. We all know that we had newspapers back in the days where, print was, every day, every Sunday you picked up and you read it. Now everything's online. Now everything is, you read it online. So if those news stories are fake, then you're not going to go back to that site or that, story anymore, or that writer. Yeah. You say that writer is putting a lot of misinformation. I don't think it's true, even though,
it's a trust issue in many ways.
It's a trust issue in many ways. Absolutely. It all comes down trustworthiness and how you build your brand around trust. Mm-hmm. So for me is, I'm not a Pfizer or Merck, right? I mean, where I get my information of is those companies who make these drugs and those other scientists who say things about those drugs. So I bring different perspectives so people understand these are trustworthy organizations that it's coming from. All I'm doing is providing this in a digital world way of getting this information. So, you know, I'm asking the feedback, how they, when they took those drugs, what are their interaction is. I was actually consulting Pfizer in 2011 for a project, and one of the things that that I learned was that a lot of the feedback when we go to our doctors and we get prescribed for a prescription, and if that prescription have a different effect, we go back to the doctor and say, I had this reaction to this drug. And then they change to a different drug, but that information never go back to the drug maker. I don't know if you guys know that or not. So it stops right there. So if the drug company get those information, they will probably adjust their, you know, feedbacks and look at it and say, okay, why these certain groups getting these reactions? So I'm asking folks to utilize in my platform is to interact with each other and say, you know, I'm taking aspirin, but every time I take aspirin, this is what I have. I get some rash. Some people in different part of the world will say, you know what, I'm doing this, I'm getting the same thing. So there's got to be some kind of a either food or whatever that those groups share in terms of getting those reactions. So I'm building the brand around the community and their interactions. So I'm sort of more like motivating those information to the best of my knowledge. But it, like you said, it all comes down to the trustworthiness. So if you build your brand and your digital products in trustworthiness. Right now, in our community in East Africa, we have a trust issue, and we are doing it in a negative way. I think when Facebook started it, I don't know if most of you folks, if you're young, and I don't know, MySpace was the other thing that used to be out there, right? It started it, and people used to do all kind of nasty things, and we learn along the way. Now,
I mean, it's all about building trust, and as organizations and businesses grow, and as they understand their customers, their communities, their audiences, the people they're there to serve, that just as you're all doing, you work harder at building that trust. I hope that has clearly come across from what the three of you are doing. I just want to note the time, and I feel like we could have gone much more in depth with each of you, and also just as together. And I'm noting that we are at time, unfortunately. So I hope maybe we can continue this conversation in another iteration. But for each of you, it's been such a pleasure and an honor listening to your work. And for Mala, on Facebook, we really want to thank you for this partnership and this collaboration. I'd like to turn it over to Zainab just for closing remarks before we hang up. But on behalf of Facebook, this has really been exciting, and we want to thank you and the audience for joining us. Zainab, if you could put our event to a close, please.
Thank you so much, Samhar, for your partnership, for Facebook's partnership. We have in the past 5 years partnered with Facebook several times. So again, to everybody who's tuned in, thank you for taking the time off of your busy day. Hashtag digital diasporas is the hashtag. This will be shared on Mala's Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/Mala National. We are also on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Mala National. And our website is www.malanational.org. And thank you so much, Mohammed, Flex, Isaac, for all of your contributions. I feel like this conversation could have gone on. And really, this is the exciting part, is that we are going to be doing this in partnership with Facebook. We'll continue bringing together different voices, different perspectives, build powerful coalitions within our communities, and really engage through relationships digitally, especially amongst diaspora communities. And as we continue with this year, as COVID-19, I hope everybody remains safe. Please stay connected. We will be continuing meaningful interactions with everybody through our digital platforms, especially through Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. And I look forward to the next program and conversation with Facebook. So thank you again so much. And we look forward to sharing this webinar with everybody on our Facebook page.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day and rest of the week.
Bye now.